What does it look like to start strong in your new ministry position? That's what we're talking about in today's episode. And get ready because it's time.
Holy nuclear time bombs! Holy overeating! Holy roller coasters!
It's time!
It's time.
It's time for the YM Sidekick Podcast!
Hello, heroes. This is Tom Pounder, and you are listening to the YM Sidekick Podcast. This is a podcast where ministers come to learn some cool tips and tricks and ideas on how to do ministry more effectively in a very digital and online world. And today I'm excited to have my friend Stan Rodda back on. Actually, I'm kind of mixed to have my friend Stan Rodda on because we are talking about a subject about starting strong in a new ministry position. How do you do that effectively? And Stan Rodda, unfortunately, is gonna be starting strong in a new ministry position away from me. Again, Stan and I, if you've been following the podcast, we work in the same church, and he is now moving on. And so we talk about what it looks like to end well, but also start strong in this new ministry position. So I'm really excited to talk to him and get him to share his thoughts because he's doing things currently right now to transition well into a new ministry position. And we're going to learn what he's doing and how that can help you when you're doing your next ministry position change. So without any further ado, let's get in the conversation right now with Stan Rodda, talk about how you can start strong in a new ministry position. With me right now is my friend Stan Rodda. Stan,
what's up, Tom Pounder?
I mean, well, we've been just talking offline for the past few minutes, and we had dinner together last night with Brennan Loveless, and now we get to talk about ministry stuff again, some more.
Man, we can't get enough of each other.
No, we can't. But I mean, pretty soon, like I'm not going to see you very much soon. I mean, pretty soon, like I'm not going to see you every week on a Zoom call anymore. It's like
That's true.
You're out of here. So, it's been a little bit of time since you've been on the podcast. So tell people what's new in the life of Stan Rodda.
Well, I know that your listeners were all sitting around today thinking to themselves, you know what I really need an update on Stan. That's what's really missing in my life. So
Tom hasn't had him on the podcast lately. What is he doing?
I just feel like I'm missing Stan. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the short answer is I have accepted a lead pastor role at a church outside of Kansas City, Missouri, in Lee's Summit, and am in the process of transitioning into that role, transitioning out of my current role as a campus pastor at New Life. And so everything right now is a chaotic mess. The house is half packed and there's holes in the wall, and it's a little bit crazy right now, to be honest.
Yeah, and you also have a graduating senior as well. I mean, so not only are you doing stuff, but you've got graduation stuff, right?
Yeah, my oldest son just graduated high school, which is crazy. I don't feel like I'm old enough to have a kid graduating high school. That's really odd.
You really don't have enough gray hair yet to have a kid that.
No, I'm working on it, but yeah, I don't. So he graduated high school and he's prepping for something in some kind of college or further education. And I just recently had my 21st anniversary, so that's going on. There's a bunch happening over here in my little corner of the world.
Yeah. Okay. So and you're still doing 4Gen, correct?
Yep. Still doing 4Gen. Taking a little bit of a break through the summer, only because I'm trying to transition to this new role, and so kind of slowing down on a couple of things. So I've been sending a few less emails and things of that nature. But yes, 4Gen is going to be on the move again real soon, and so it's still up and running for sure.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, today we want to talk about you transitioning into this new role. Now, on my podcast before, I've had people come on and share about how you can end well. And my personal opinion is, Stan, I think you've ended very well at New Life. And it will be so very sad to have you not on staff anymore, sending me nasty texts during staff meetings, trying to make me laugh and stuff. But we want to talk about how you can start strong. Okay, so how you can start
Yeah.
strong on there, and what kind of a period right now will you have between the time that you end at New Life and when you start at your new job?
So yeah, my last day of responsibilities with New Life, just for what it's worth for the timeline for everybody, is Sunday, June 6th. I'll be paid at New Life through the end of June, and then basically starting up in July at the new church. And so that's kind of the time frame I'm working in, and basically trying to, handle everything really well in the middle of that time frame. I do think for whoever recorded that podcast with you on kind of finishing well, I think that starting well in a new role actually begins there. So if anybody happened to have
Okay.
missed that podcast, they need to go listen to it, because the reality is that starting well at the new job, especially in ministry, those guys are watching how you end at your current role. And so starting well with new people really does, with a new ministry, really does begin with ending well at your current ministry, because people want to know, they're kind of watching you to see what they're going to get,
Yeah.
like what you're going to bring to the table, what kind of integrity you have, what kind of work ethic, and those types of things. So for whatever that's worth, I won't belabor that point, but I do think starting well in a new ministry does begin with ending well at the current one, so that you go into it kind of fresh and, with your integrity intact, and um, yeah,
Okay.
things like that.
Okay, so let's hit on this real quick.
Okay.
What are some of the things that you were intentional about how you ended at New Life? What were some of the things you wanted to make sure that you definitely did?
A couple things were, I wanted to make sure that I communicated everything as clearly as I could. I wanted to communicate the process of how things had happened as clearly as I could. I wanted to communicate that up the food chain. I wanted to communicate that horizontally to people on staff with me. And then I wanted to communicate it well down the food chain, so to speak, to my campus, to my staff team, just so that everybody was hearing a clear and consistent message. So I think a lot of that initial leave well stuff really did boil down to communicating like a clear, consistent message for everybody. And so I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And then there were other small things along the way too, like, return your boss's emails, hey, do you remember that one document you worked on that one time? Remember that graphic thing you made? Remember the one deal you did? Hey, do you still have this other thing? And, replying and getting back to people and still communicating and finishing strong through that, because it is easy for a lot of people when they end a ministry to kind of mentally and emotionally check out and just disappear and never, like communicate back the stuff that's needed. So one of the things I was really diligent and intentional about was making sure that anything my boss asked for, my staff needed, I tried hard to be very quick to respond, to get them what they needed, to have things on a time schedule, so that there wasn't, these big open delays of time where nobody knew what to expect or what was going on. So yeah, communication was a big thing, and actually doing stuff, so that you can end well, I think were really important parts for me.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that, because I think a lot of times some people have ended, and I've had these experiences with different people, and you ask for certain things and you need certain things. Like I've had someone where I've replaced somebody before, and I needed certain documents or certain information about how this was done or how this was done, and it wasn't given to me, or it was really delayed, and it was just a very frustrating experience for that. And again, you understand that, yeah, for whatever reason at this point the person that I was replacing got fired, and I can understand there was hardness and whatnot, but again, you really do want to be quick to be able to respond, because again, it does reflect who you are. And now again, I know you have chosen to leave New Life and accepted this new position, but you bending over backwards and communicating effectively, in line with what everyone has been saying, and being able to be there for your staff has been really noticeable. It's been really good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That was definitely part of the intentionality of trying to leave well, was making sure that that kind of stuff was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and now let's go to the forward thinking here. I know you've been in contact with your new church
Yeah.
quite regularly. So, what are the things that you're doing right now so that that will set you up so that you can, when you have an official start date, you're on the ground running and you're not playing catch up on some things.
Yeah, so in a similar vein, communicating well to that group as well, if I
Yeah.
can use the exact same answer. Yeah, trying to stay on top of what needs to be communicated to them. How are things going on my end? How's the house search going? Just keeping them in the loop, I think, is really important, so they know what you're thinking about. They know you're still processing moving forward. They know how to pray more clearly because you're dealing with certain things, and so they kind of know how to pray. So to steal the other answer, going forward as well, I would say communication is key. They send me something, I get the document done, signed, whatever, and sent back. I try to move quickly to get those things done, to communicate well. I had read a book, and now I'm kind of blanking on the title. I think it was called the First 90 Days. It was kind of a corporate kind of a book, but there was a lot of good stuff in there. One of the things I took away from that book, that I had read it probably 10 or 11 years ago. One of the things I took away from that, I basically started to write down questions that I thought would help me start well in the new ministry. Questions like, in the first 100 days, what are my top 5 goals? What are the top 5 things I really want to achieve in those 90 to 100 days? What are my top 3 to 5 priorities in those first 90 to 100 days or so? One of the questions I wrestled with that a ministry coach gave me was the question, what does an overwhelming win look like for you in the first 100 days? And I think wrestling through those questions and just starting to write them out, a couple of them were really vague. I think at one point I had 10 or 12 goals, and I had like 7 priorities. I'm like, okay, you can't have 7 priorities going into a new job. That's got to be a little more crisp and clear and focused. But writing it down and letting it be kind of sloppy initially, and then beginning to refine it and get really specific, down to things like, I want to meet with X amount of people. They need to be elders, staff, blah, blah, blah. I have to meet with X amount of people over those first few days. I want to have, 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners every single week with someone new, like really clear, like, what's my goal? How do I achieve that on a weekly basis? And how does that kind of feed into my overall priority of what I'm trying to accomplish for the first 100 days or so? So I wrestled a lot with the communication, and then I really have been trying to pour myself into, okay, what are the most important priorities, goals? What's a big win in the first few months? And trying to get a really clear picture of what that means for me, and then beginning to kind of pursue from there. So that's kind of the process I've been in mentally
Yeah.
as I approach some date in July.
Yeah. I like how you talked about how your plan was to have 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, or 2 dinners, whatever that works out to be. I remember when I first started at New Life, the executive pastor at the time said, especially the first week to 10 days, he's like, your job is to really spend as much time with people on staff as possible so you can learn and understand the culture of New Life. And I
Yeah.
thought that was very valuable advice. And I wasn't able to do it a lot, but I
Mhm.
will say this, like, there were a lot of people who questioned, so why was Tom hired? Like, what is his role at New Life?
We've been asking that for 10 years, Tom.
but but the but the thing was, because I didn't spend time with those people and get to know them and understand
Yeah.
the culture and stuff, that really put me behind the 8 ball, and I had to do a little bit more work. So I like how you're talking about, and these aren't just staffers, you're talking about just other people in general too. I think that's important.
I'm talking about elders. I'm talking about core families, and kind of having I guess kind of a stump speech ready to go, for lack of a better phrase. The same 4 to 5 questions you want to ask everybody to kind of get to know them. And if I had to add one more to like goals, priorities, and overwhelming win, kind of what's the image of your first 100 days look like, I think I would also add ask more questions than statements you make, kind of a thing. Like, don't my approach is not to go in and say, okay, well, here I am and I've got all the answers and I've been in ministry long enough now, so we're going to do everything this way.
Yeah.
My approach is to ask more questions. What do you guys think about that? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? How long have you been at the church? What excites you about this church? What, personally drains you? Like, help me get to know the person. So asking a lot of questions, especially in ministry, is really important. That first, some people would probably say the first 6 months to a year, it's really important to do a lot of asking rather than a lot of changing, because most guys or gals in ministry who have a horror story can trace it back to, well, 3 months in, I decided to take out the pews, or something like that. and that's when the nightmare started.
Yep. No. That's so true. I also know that you had, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you told me this, that you had requested already to get an email address for your new job. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. I said, okay, what's the way that the team is primarily communicating right now? And their tech guy set me up with my email address as a part of the Microsoft Office suite stuff. So like Teams and Outlook and, all this stuff with that. So basically getting on board with some of the communicating of what's happening with the teams, what things are upcoming, what events are on their way. Being in the loop that way helps me to know how I can be praying for them and what they've got going on in these weeks that I'm not really going to be there, but I'm headed there, but I'm not there yet. So yeah, even things like that. Can I have an email address? How is the team primarily communicating? Do you guys, are you primarily still using Zoom? Are you using email? Are you using something within the Microsoft suite or a Basecamp type platform? Or how can I get involved, even if I'm not really speaking into the process much yet? How can I get involved in being a part of the conversation, seeing how things are going, knowing how I can pray, and being a part of it that way as well? So yeah, email address or whatever. From there, you want to kind of get connected to the flow of, the new ministry, the new team, your people.
Yeah, and it shows. I mean, at least I think it would show. I don't think they would be like, no, we can't give Stan any more information than he wants. I think they want to dump information on you and say, here's this, and then they will be excited because again, when you start that day one, your official start date, you're going to be ready to go. You don't have to work. Like again, the first days, it's always filled with what's the email password, what's the network password, what form do I have to fill out here, and now you're doing all this stuff on the front end before you even start.
Yeah.
And that's going to set you up to succeed so you can get to the real business of what you're doing.
Yeah, when I get there and officially get started, whatever that exact date ends up being, once I get that going, yeah, you're right. You want to hit the ground running. You want to have an idea of like how the meetings tend to flow, how long they typically are, how are people communicating, and where are all the documents going. And if you kind of have, I mean, I'll make mistakes, I'm sure, because I don't have it completely down, but even if you have a rough idea of where all that's going, how it moves around, the people you need to talk to get certain things done, then to your point, when you get there, you're hitting the ground running. You're not saying, okay, so where's my office and do I need keys? And like, you've dealt with all of that. So trying to use I guess in one way you could almost go up a level and just say, trying to use the transition time well, not just use it to, because I mean, one option for me would be to, sit for the next 4 weeks and just take a bunch of vacation because I'm not at New Life and I'm being paid to end out, the month of June. So, I mean, one option is just to waste 4 weeks and go on a lot of vacations or something.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a good use of the time. So yeah, using that transition time as well to prepare you to hit the ground running, I think that's a good one.
That's good. Okay, so as we're getting close to wrapping up here, what else would you add on here? What are some things that you're thinking through so that's going to set you up to succeed and start strong when you get to your new church?
Yeah, so as as of this recording, I'm getting ready to finish at New Life. I have a couple days left, and I'm getting ready to visit the new church in the coming week to look around. And so for me, I think right now, one of the things I want to do while I'm out there is to spend some time right now with some of the people that are there. You know, maybe go to one or two of the church type events, connect with the staff if I can, touch base with the elders, those types of things to show that I'm thinking forward. For instance, one of the things I'm working on is basically my actual start date. Like, okay, what does that actually look like? What are they thinking? What am I thinking? What's going to work well for both parties? How do we do this in a way that's, the healthiest for the church, for the kingdom, for the people there? And so, one of the big wins for me in the next week or so is really going to be basically landing on that start date with them, and yeah, and then implementing the rest of everything we just talked about, and making sure that whenever I finally do arrive, for real in July sometime, we're ready to rock and roll. So that's kind of the big thing in front of me right now that I'm focusing on, is getting that piece knocked out, and then go from there. So
Yeah, and I like actually, again, I know this happens in a lot of ways, especially if you're moving cross country, or to a different state or whatnot, that you usually go out and go house shopping or look for a place that you want
yep,
to do. But I like that you're taking your whole family out there. And so your whole family can get used to it. Because again, you and your wife went out there and interviewed and did that whole process, but your kids didn't. And so
right.
for them to get acclimated with it a little bit and get familiar with, okay, this is what the church really looks like, or this is what the area looks like. Here's all the hot kids here, and and then you can expose them to the church, and all the church kids can be like, "Oh, those Rodda kids, man, they are so good looking.
Oh, there's the PKs. There they are.
I can't wait to date them." Kind of deal like that. So
PK is the mark of the beast. I think they've got the mark.
yeah. Do they have lacrosse out there? I know one of your kids plays lacrosse. So
Uh, yeah, I'm sure they do. The high school's there, similar size to where I'm at here in Virginia, and they've got all the sports, and three or four big universities right around Kansas City. KU, K State, MU, Nebraska's up a little bit further north, but you got some pretty big universities there, all with lacrosse teams, and they're all
yeah.
pulling out of the kids out of high school and stuff, wanting them to play. And so yeah, they've got all the sports and swimming and all the stuff that they could or don't want to do or whatever. Yeah, they're all there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, Stan, I know you're gonna start strong, and I know you're doing a lot of work, and I know you're excited about it.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's very encouraging to see. Again, we will talk, but you will be on the podcast some more. Now I've got a whole bunch more topics I can talk to you about. Now that you're heading up all this stuff that you're doing, you're not leading from second, but you are the leader, and so.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll be, but yeah,
yeah.
we can still talk about whatever.
Yeah. Well, give me a quick little update. We mentioned it briefly about 4Gen. I know you
Yeah.
said you're getting acclimated to the new position, but 4Gen is not ending. In
No.
fact, you have plans that it's going to continue. And so
Yep.
update people and where they can find it.
So yeah, you can get all the information at forgen.org. That's all spelled out, FOURGEN.org. And the kind of the highlights of Forgen really are some discipleship training for pastors, churches, staffs, whoever. And once I get settled in the Kansas City area, we'll kick those back off. For now, I'm taking a break from those just because I can't focus on all the things. So we're going to take a break from those for a bit, but we will get those started again once I'm settled there. And then the other big piece of 4Gen, or one of, is the pastoral retreats. We just had one back in April, I thought it was overwhelming success. We had a great time. Had a couple pastors and a spouse come over. And we are actually working on hopefully a new partnership with an organization in Missouri, where there's potential for those pastoral retreats to take more of a front and center kind of place in ForGen if we can finish up this partnership that we're working on with an organization there. So here real soon, ForGen will definitely be more active, kind of going slow right now just because there's a lot of moving parts and I can't do everything. But yeah, it's still going. And once I'm settled, that'll pick right back up right where we left off.
Yeah, and that's encouraging. And even though Stan's got a little bit of break here as he transitions into the new role, the reality is with 4Gen, there's so much good content on there. There's old blog posts, there's ebooks on there, and there's podcasts of training. So you can scour that website and look, and you find all that stuff that's really relevant today.
Yep. You can even now, we have a whole members area, so you can create an account, become a member. It's all free. And basically you have access to our library of tools that we've been putting out there for all of our disciple making efforts. So there's a few there that are just kind of on the homepage for free type of a thing. But then if you join the members area, you get, news and updates. You get, kind of, you're the first to hear of things. We've got an FAQ there. You can meet the 4Gen team. So yeah, when you get to the page, create an account. It's free. It's just a real simple membership thing. And then it gives you access to our entire library of tools. And that's actually the best way to go about it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, 4Gen's fantastic. I'm glad you're continuing it, and we'll be looking for more and more updates. All right, Stan, thanks so much.
Yeah, man.
I'll be talking to you soon.
I'll be talking to you soon, Tom.
See you.
All right, see you, man.
All right, so there you have it, my conversation with Stan. It's always great talking with him, and even though he is moving away from me, we will always still be friends and continue to chat, and I'll continue to have him on the podcast. In fact, I have a whole new series of podcasts I can do with him now, that he's going to be the lead pastor at this church, and I'm excited for him on that. But I was curious from you guys, what stood out from you on transitioning well, starting strong? How can you do that in a new ministry position? If you've done it before and you found some tricks or tips that you'd like to share with us, I would love to hear it. Simply go over to Twitter and let's keep this conversation going on. My Twitter handle is @TA_Pounder. Share that. Share your thoughts with me and tag me in it, and we can carry this conversation on some more. Or you can just email me at tom@ymsidekick.com. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts and your tips so that we can encourage each other in starting strong in what you're doing or what you've done or what you've heard done to be successful. All right, heroes, well, that wraps it up for another episode of the YM Sidekick podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, go to iTunes or Spotify and rate it or like it and subscribe to it. That would be super awesome if you could do that. Also, you can get all my content at ymsidekick.com, and you can get some daily encouragement at the Digital Bootcamp Facebook group, where we have ministers from all different backgrounds and all different ministry positions learn digital tools. It's really important in this day and age to know and learn digital tools. So we talk about them every day and encourage each other. So you can find that at the Digital Bootcamp Facebook group. And actually all this stuff you can find at ymsidekick.com. All right, heroes, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. And until next time, have a great one.